Hey guys, this is Rocket here, back with another tutorial, and in this video I'll be talking about more on the web audio API that I started talking about in the previous video. So if you remember, if you have seen it, and if you remember, in the previous video I was talking about audio context, how you can go about creating oscillators, filters and all that. If you've not watched it, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it and come back, because there are a lot of I covered a lot of basic stuff which is important. So basically we have seen how you can create an oscillator and then create a filter and connect both of them. So you connect the oscillator to basically the filter first. It's not this, you connect to the filter, and then after that filter is connected to the audio context destination, and stuff goes on, and we have set a timeout and all that. So in this video I'll be talking more about oscillators. So I'll be talking about their basic, how their properties per se. So let's get started. So as simple as it can be. So to create an oscillator, you just gotta call create oscillator function. That's it, nothing more than that. So let me just clear up these things. Alright, so okay, let's get started. So what you gotta do is just say variable audio context is new audio context, and now we are ready to use the new audio context object. And then there's an oscillator created, and you create the oscillator, and oscillator is connected to the destination of the audio context. Now if you remember, we had high pass filter, and we set target at time and all that. I covered in the previous video. You don't need that in this. And if you remember, there was one important thing, which was like this. So you start an oscillator at the current time, but you stop it at 3000 milliseconds after 3000 milliseconds have passed, for which I used a set timeout. And right now you don't have to do that. You just can use it was just a demo purpose, but what you can do is that you can directly pass in the stop function where you want to stop. So over here you can just say +10. You can add it to the current time +10, and it will understand that for 10 seconds it has to play the whole thing, and at the 10th second it will cut it off and just go just go dead. So let's say I put it at 3, and let's play, and let's see if this works. Alright, so it's working pretty fine. So you can also tweak the start of this. So let's say I want to start this music, or whatever you call it. It's just a beep. So I just want it to run it after 1 second, or let's say after 2 seconds have passed. So I can just say +2, and then I've refreshed it, and yeah, as you can see, it started at 2 and ended at 3. So you can play around with this as and when you want. But one very important thing that you gotta remember is that once this is stopped, it's not easy to start the oscillator again. It's not like you can just say start again. What you gotta do is you gotta create another oscillator, and then connect it to the audio context destination, and then you gotta start it. So yes, there are 3 steps again involved. So before that, I'll just tell you about this. So there's an OnEnd function, OnEnd property, sorry, not a function. So it's a function as well. It's a method, but basically it's a property of oscillator. What it does is that you can just fire off a function once the oscillator has stopped playing. So over here, if you can see in the console, I have printed this audio finished playing. So let me show it again. Alright, so once it finishes, it will console out, and this is quite useful in a lot of scenarios. So let us say you're creating a game, and only after the music has started and stopped playing, you are allowing the character to move forward, or things like that. You can do that by this OnEnd property, which is pretty I think it is pretty useful. So anyways, moving forward, this is a property that you can use, and another property that I found very interesting was Detune. I'll be talking about that as well, but before that, let me cover something called as the type of oscillator. So what you can do is that you can set your type of oscillator to a lot of things. By default it is sine, and then you have multiple different types. So let's just open it up and see over here. So alright guys, as you can see over here, there's a sine wave, there's a square wave, there's a sawtooth wave, a triangle wave, and you can also give a custom one. I'll be talking about the custom later on. So basically these are just waves. There's nothing more to it. So all these links point out to Wikipedia articles. So basically if you open up anything, let's say for example the square wave, it will give you a basic graph with all squarish waves, which won't make sense right away. But if you're into digital circuits and all these things, digital signal processing and all that, you will understand all these square waves and sine waves. So by default it's a sine wave, and then you have a sawtooth wave which will go directly to the it will go to the high and then just drops directly, and you have a triangular wave and all these things. So once you get deep into all this, you'll understand all that. I'm sorry for the so cryptic statement. So what I meant to say is that once you get deep into the web audio API and understanding sounds, you'll understand how to use them. That's what I wanted to say, but of course English is not my first language, so I'm sorry. Anyways, going forward, so what I was saying is that you can set the type of oscillator, and this is another property to a lot of things. So let's say sawtooth is 1, and alright, so when I put it as sawtooth, you just heard how it's sounding. So I'll just let me just set it to default. Alright, and one more thing guys, I really want you guys to just try it out on your own in your own browsers or in your own text editors, so that you can just follow along quickly. So when I mean to say a browser, you can basically start it over here itself. So you can just say where audio context is equal to new audio context and stuff like that. So you can basically try it out in your own console, not just your editors. You don't have to open up an editor. So anyways, moving forward, so you have a sawtooth, you have a sine. So let's play a sine. So the sine is the basic default, and you can go for a square wave as well. Alright, so as you can see over there, there are pretty much 5 or 6 types, and you can go and you can even create a custom way of your own. You just need to give a periodic function and stuff like that, which I'll be talking about in detail in later videos. So going forward, this is how you set up an oscillator type, and after that what you can do is you can also set up something called a detune. So how does that work is it's like if you're into music, you'll understand this very easily. So if imagine a piano, and on the piano you play the C, a C note. Alright, so there's a middle C. So for those who don't get this, think of it like if you have ever understood music, or if you've ever heard of these classical music, the do re mi fa sol la ti, and in the Indian classical system, which I am acquainted with, is it is the sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. So basically it forms an octave. So each note each note is said to be 100 cents, not 100, sorry, 200 cents more than the preceding note. So basically if you have do re mi fa sol la ti, so do and then re is more than re is 200 cents more than do. So what the cent is that it's a measure of 100 cents is a half step in the musical system. So it's pretty easy to understand if you're into music. If you're not, then just skip this part. So I'll also show a very good example. I'll play the do re mi fa sol la ti using just the code. So that's pretty cool. So you can see over here. For now, I'll set the value. Alright, before detune, there's another property that I forgot mentioning. That is frequency, which is very important. So type is one property, frequency is another property, and then onEnded is also another property, and detune is the last property. So if you see the documentation, there are 4 properties mentioned, 4 main properties. So right now, alright, so 130.4 is said to be the frequency of the C note. C note is the basic middle C. So the C note of the third octave is called the middle C, and then you can see how it just played. Now what detune will do is that it will shift your note, it will shift your frequency basically by the amount of cents that you give. So for example, let us say I clear these out. So I'm saying that after 1 second, apply this note for me. I mean, apply this effect for me. So let's see how it changes. Alright, so for those who are acquainted with music, you might have quickly understood that it is do and re, because the shift is basically 200 cents, and 200 cents is a full step. It's not a half step. It is like it's 2 half steps, so it's like a full step. So those who are not getting, just understand that it's something like this. So on the piano, you're playing the C note and then you're playing the D note. So both of them are white notes and you're playing one after the other. So how the shift happens in frequency is nothing but this. So you give the detune and it'll take care of everything for you. So the set value at time method takes 2 arguments. One is 200, which is the amount of cents that you want to give, and then the next one is the time at which you want to give it. So what I did was I wrote down all these values for 7 seconds. So let me just increase this till 8. I mean, I'll stop it at 8 seconds, and then let's see what happens. Alright guys, I'm playing the whole thing, so just quickly listen to it. Alright, those who know this, I think a lot of people know this, so there's no problem with that. But yeah, anyways, even if you don't know, it's like in my Indian system it is sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. So in the Western classical system it is do re mi fa sol la ti. So it's nothing but playing the octaves basically of the musical system. So that was just created by using your audio context, and in the second tutorial itself you have understood how to create that. So you can go ahead and just play around with music on your own. So if you give 100 instead of 200, what it'll do is that it'll create a half step. So for those who know music, it'll basically take C to C sharp, so it won't take you to D. So the C sharp is the black note between C and D, for those who don't know that. So anyways, on a piano scale, that is. So anyways, going ahead, so that's it I guess for this video. So I've spoken about type, I've spoken about frequency, I've spoken about detune, and also onEnded property. So I'll just write them down quickly. So you have an oscillator, and then you initiate it by using the create oscillator method, and then you connect it to your destination or to any other node that comes before the destination. You connect it and you make sure that that node is in return connected to the destination. After that, you can specify the type if at all you want to give the type. So let's say instead of square I say sawtooth. Let's see how it sounds with our music. Alright, so you heard that. I hope you heard that. So it's beautiful music. So anyways, so you can give the type of your wave. So there are many types. One is sine, which is the default one. So basically, so the types, basically the properties are onEnded, the one which will fire off. I mean, it will fire off a function which it'll basically fire off a function that'll play after the whole thing has ended. So you can do a lot of things. And let's say you want to play it again, you can, you want to start the whole thing again. So what you got to do is you got to write it inside this. So how to do that, I'll show it in a bit. Before that, I just want to complete off the properties. So OnEnd will fire off a function, and the next one is the type will basically set your sawtooth, sine and triangle waves and all that. So you can just give it, it takes a string. Basically it's as simple as that. And then there is a frequency, so you can give it frequency. Earlier people used to use these people are still using it. So basically you don't have all these brackets around, you just give a direct value, but you will get deprecation warning. So let me just play it. Alright, so as you can see over here, you have a deprecation. It is saying that it will end in M64 and all that. So to take care of that, what you do is you go use this new method, which is set value at time. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are still using this method, the older one, and that will cause a problem is what I would say. So better get to this. So set value at time, and then later on you can also detune it. So that was another thing that I spoke about. Detune is basically, using in the musical system. So 100 cents is like a half step, so 200 cents is like one full step. Alright, so the detune will take two values. One is when you want it, the value, how much shift you want, and then when you want it. Same like any other set value time method for frequency and detune and all that. So anyways, so these are the four properties. And lastly, what I was talking about is that OnEnd function, you can use it to again restart, but there's a big but. So so what you gotta make sure is that you create an oscillator again. So you can't just start an oscillator just like that. What you gotta do is you gotta say oscillator is equal to audio context, just a second, audio context dot create oscillator. And then what you gotta do is you gotta say oscillator dot connect audio context dot destination. And then lastly what you do is you just say oscillator dot start. Alright, so you take this, and then you can just go ahead and alright, so now it won't end because I didn't give a stop. So it's pretty oh my god, it's just running on and on. So I need to cut it off. 1 second. Alright, so that's it guys. So that's it for this video. So the earlier code was this, which I had to kill because the sound wasn't ending. I could have closed the browser, but anyway, so I hope you understood whatever I spoke about in this video. So the OnEnd function is used to restart everything, but to restart you gotta create an oscillator and connect it again and stuff like that. And if you can see, oscillator is losing its properties once you create it again, because when I played it the second time, when it started again, it started with its basic sine wave property. So make sure that you take all these into consideration and you set all your properties right. Anyways guys, so that's it for this video. I think I've spoken a lot today, and I hope you learned a bit, and I really want you guys to go ahead and try this out in your own browsers. So until next time, I'll see you guys soon with another video on this web audio API, and let's try out a lot of things, a lot of cool stuff. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching. This is Rocket signing off, and also share it with your friends. Do that please, and subscribe to my channel if you're new.